Hello and welcome to the Mossley Hill Podcast series, where we're going to be focusing on people's faith and exploring how prayer fits in. Today, David will be sitting down with James Green to explore his faith journey. James is the CEO of Together Liverpool, which is a social justice charity working with people of all faiths and none.
Hi James, thank you very much for meeting me today about this, and I hope you're looking forward to it as much as I am to chatting with you, finding out a little bit about your faith journey.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've said in our introduction that we're just talking to people, some from inside the church and from outside our church, about their faith journeys, but in particular want us to just talk about how important prayer is and so on, but we'll come to that a little bit later.
Great.
So perhaps we could just start by, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself, your family, and what you do and so on.
Yeah, great. I grew up in Sheffield, South Yorkshire. So I guess like lots of young lads grew up in South Yorkshire. I did played a lot of cricket as a kid. I loved doing that. My claim to fame is. Do you know anything about cricket, David?
I do.
Okay, so my claim to fame.
But I'm a big Lancashire supporter.
Oh yeah, okay. I won't hold it against you. My claim to fame is I played against Joe Root.
Oh, did you?
And I got him out. And I'm an identical twin. And my twin brother was keeping wicket behind the stumps, and I bowled a very average kind of doubly away swinger at age 13, and my brother caught him out, taking him Joe's outside edge. So that's my claim to fame.
That's impressive.
Yeah. More recently, I trained to be a vicar at Durham University. That's where I met my wife Alice. She was studying a modern foreign languages degree, which comes in really handy when you go abroad. And I did my curacy in Edinburgh at a city centre church there. Loved Edinburgh. Edinburgh's such a beautiful city, but it's a long way north, isn't it?
It is.
My family had moved to the lakes, and Alice's family were in Birmingham, so we decided to move a little bit further south to be closer to them. So we came to Liverpool it was about 7 or 8 years ago or so. And I was the Vicar at St Andrew's Church in Clubmoor for 4 and a bit years, and then latterly I've been the lead for Together Liverpool for just coming up for 2 years. We've been foster carers. We took care of a couple of girls for 2 years. They moved out not long before our first baby was born. She's called Nola. She was born 4th of July, and she is at the moment she's very smiley, she's very giggly, but when we get into teething, then it's a whole different world. But yeah, so we've got Nola with us, and we'll look to go back to fostering at some point in the near future.
Right.
Too.
Right. So you fostered a few children then?
Yeah, we fostered 2 girls. We had a sibling group. They were with us for 2 years.
Right.
So, and it was simultaneously the most brilliant thing we've done, or definitely that I've ever done, and also one of the hardest. But yeah, really, it felt and it feels really important to us.
In the next section, James tells us about his own personal journey with God.
Everybody, of course, has their own personal faith journey, which is so different for everybody, I'm sure. So perhaps could you tell us a little bit about your faith journey? Obviously you've mentioned that you're ordained and so on. Really, how did you get to that? So, for instance, were you brought up in a Christian family or? Yeah,
absolutely. Yes, brought up in a Christian family, evangelical-ish, charismatic-ish, and went to church for most of my childhood. There was a bit where I stopped going because cricket matches were on a Sunday morning, and church wasn't that exciting when I was 13 years old. Didn't want to do action songs, and so I didn't go for a while. But it's I guess for lots of my kind of teenage years and then through into my early 20s, my faith happened in very straight lines, and I kind of just assumed that the older I got and the longer I followed Jesus, the more clear answers I would have about life. And the church that I was at in Edinburgh was a brilliant church. I loved being a part of it. It was a pretty wealthy middle class church, and so lots of people's lives, although everyone's life is complicated in some respects, but life there felt relatively simple and relatively straightforward. And then going from that context to St Andrews in Clubmoor, where people's lives are much more complicated and things, more obviously don't go like people always expected them to go. My faith changed quite a lot, and I started to recognise that life and relationship with Jesus doesn't necessarily mean that you have more answers, but that Jesus was a rabbi and he asked questions, and so as we walk with him and as we follow him, that rather than expecting clearer answers, we might expect to find better questions to ask of ourselves. And so my faith looks different, I would say, in lots of ways now. It's more grounded probably, and a bit more realistic than it was when I was 18. But when you're an 18-year-old kid, you're not necessarily looking for realistic, you're looking for the most exciting version of things that you can find.
Yeah, I could see it would be quite different from. So you're in the centre of Edinburgh? Or
yeah.
One of the
Centre
suburbs?
Edinburgh. No, it's the centre.
Yeah. So it was quite different to come to Clubmoor.
Yeah, absolutely. And different. Different communities teach you different things about what it means to follow Jesus, don't they?
Yeah, sure.
And Clubmoor really taught me about the complexity of life, and that Jesus is. I guess we'll come on to talk about prayer later on, but that Jesus is with us in that complexity, and that we have to have a relationship with God that's more than transactional. That's about spending time with Him in His presence, and that creates the soil or the context for us to flourish with Him. And actually, it's really easy for us to get fixed on, did this go like I wanted it to? Did I get the answer or the output that I wanted? When actually that's not how relationships work, is it? With Nola, if she cries in the middle of the night or whatever, that's got no bearing on my relationship with her, but it's about being with people and growing and learning who they are and to love them as part of it.
Absolutely. Why did you decide to move out of parish life to work for Together Liverpool? Perhaps we could say a little bit more about what your role is with Together Liverpool.
Yeah, so it's leaving St Andrews was a really big decision for us. I think because I trained to be a vicar at 18 years old, and at 18 years old I thought this was it for the rest of my life. And when I turned up at Clubmoor, me and my wife turned up. I would have been 26 years old, which looking back is recklessly young to be a vicar. But people would say, how long do you think you'll be here for? And my predecessor was there for 20 years, and I couldn't have imagined not being there for 20 years. I thought that we would, have our family in Clubmoor, and that we would be there for a long time. But as I kind of alluded to before, life doesn't happen in straight lines, does it? And it's not always predictable. And part of that unpredictability for us was about fostering. And I would, obviously people talk about being a vicar in kind of vocational terms. This is the thing that we're called to do or called to be. And I would articulate my understanding of fostering in a similar way. It feels vocational in that it feels called to the person that God has called and is calling me to be. And we reached a bit of a tipping point. We'd been fostering for 6 months, and things were going well at church, all that stuff. But I was really struggling to handle some of the chaos that we now had at home with fostering, and also with working with a local authority and all that stuff that was pretty complicated at the time. Mm-hmm. And some of the church stuff. And so we reached a bit of a tipping point. And one day the girls had gone out somewhere, and me and my wife went out for dinner. And I have a really clear memory going out for dinner to a restaurant just around the corner from our house, and crying into my dinner and saying, I just can't do this anymore. And I recognised I'd gone past my resilience and reserves, and so something had to change. Mm-hmm. And so it was pretty clear, either I was going to keep on being a vicar, or I was going to keep on being a foster carer. And I don't think there's a right or a wrong decision in that, but I knew, and Alice knew as well, that we couldn't keep on going like we had. And so that moment in time, that the right and the best thing to do felt like moving away from St Andrews. So I guess whenever we leave somewhere, there's a push and a pull. So the push was we can't keep doing this is unsustainable. And there's always other things going on, but that was the main reason. And then through being at St Andrews, I'd become really convinced that local church community is the way that we see people transformed the best. Because we have Jesus, and Jesus changes everything about our lives, but also because the thing that we need the most, I believe, is to discover that we're loved. We're known and we're loved and we're valued. And we find that in rooted and grounded community, where I can come to church every week, come to a coffee morning every week, and I can make friends and build relationships, and that's the way that we see justice come in our communities. And so for me, taking on the role at Together Liverpool was about choosing to focus on and build on that. That if we want to see our city region transformed, what's the best way for us to do that? Well, it is to equip local faith communities, local worship communities to transform their communities and to be places where we build relationships. And so that's what Together Liverpool does through the network of kindness. We're gathering people from across the diocese of Liverpool who want to see people in their community flourish. That everyone has access to everything they need to flourish well. And so through the network of kindness, people can become members of it, and we offer them some resourcing and some training events. I've just come this morning from a dementia awareness training session where we've seen 33 groups trained in how to understand dementia, how to welcome people with dementia into their communities. We offer some small pots of funding as well for stuff around holiday hunger, and then we connect people to funders as well. But everything that we do through that is grounded in the understanding that it's that change is best led at a local level, and it's best done in relationship and community with each other.
Yeah. That's the story is so powerful. How you feel, how you felt about that, and what happened to you, and it's great to know it. Being very honest about how you felt on that, really. But lots of people have difficulty with their work and so on, really, and it's a brave thing sometimes to actually give something major up, isn't it, really, and completely change your life there. But it's always in ways lots of people that happen to, but having your faith is the thing that remains constant through that, and that's what you can fall back on, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And my faith is the container that holds everything together, and so it means that whether I'm a vicar or not, whether I'm a foster care or not, we've not got kids with us at the moment. It doesn't change fundamentally who I am and who God's made me to be, and so I can express my sense of call and vocation through being a vicar or foster carer or leading Together Liverpool or doing something else entirely. It's my faith that gives me the container to do that.
Next, David finds out what really makes James tick.
So would you say, listening to what you've just been explaining there, would you say that social justice issues, that is the passion, the thing that makes you want to get up in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that working for justice is one of the fullest expressions of our calling to be followers and apprentices of Jesus. And the way that we do that, or the way that I'm passionate about that, it obviously comes partly from my time at Clubmoor, and then partly from things that we would have been concerned about before then. But there's a kind of a key moment when we had someone come live with us when we were at Clubmoor. They stayed with us for a month, and then they had to move on, and their life was really chaotic, and they lived with us when they were in about their late 20s, and after they'd moved out, me and Alice, we felt a bit defeated by it, because we thought, I didn't quite go like we'd wanted it to go, and there's loads of reasons, and we are not the answer to people's problems, and we shouldn't do things thinking maybe I can fix this situation or what have you, but we do it with open hands. But one of the conversations that we had then was, we didn't need to meet this person now when they're in their early 30s. We needed to meet them when they were 7 years old as a kid, and if we can meet people earlier, and there's been a load of research done about the difference that having one secure relationship makes to a child and their life outcomes, and if you can meet one person who's consistent and kind and caring, and they don't have to get everything right, but they can be that for them, then you start to dramatically change a person's life outcomes. The possibility of them having stable relationships, getting on well at school, holding down a job, all of that stuff. And so what we that really kick-started me and Alison thinking about fostering, but also again really underlined to us the difference in the impact that churches and faith communities can make in transforming their communities, because when we do it well, then we become places for whole families to come and be a part of things, a part of our communities. There's a potential that you can be that secure person for people whose lives might otherwise be a bit chaotic and a bit disordered. And one of the things we loved the most about Clubmoor was how chaotic everything felt, and there were always kids running around the space and people getting up and down in the middle of the service or whatever. And it's not always great trying to hold your train of thought in the middle of a sermon, but there was so much life and so much energy in that place for us, and it aligned so well with our understanding of justice and how communities are changed. And so we've tried to carry that with us into the new iteration of us and in my work too.
Yeah. It's interesting you said that the idea of chaos in the church service will resonate very much with us at Mossley Hill, because it's like that in our families. It's packed, lots of noise.
Yeah.
But it's great to hear.
In this section, we find out how important prayer is in James's life.
I'd like to ask you now, James, a little bit about prayer and how important is prayer to you in your daily life?
Yeah. So my experience of prayer is I've often not been a very good prayer. I'm sure lots of people can relate to that. We always feel like I wish I prayed more or did that or did the other. But when I was in Edinburgh, I started meeting with a spiritual director for the first time. So that's someone who helps you find and experience different ways of praying. And he was trained as a Jesuit, which means he had a particular kind of model for prayer that was very very contemplative. And so I did something called the exercises, which were written by St. Ignatius. And the idea is that I think you're meant to go away to somewhere in the Swiss Alps or whatever for a month and be in silence and do all this, but they recognise that's not terribly practical for people. And so they've reduced it down so that over the course of a year you spend an hour a day in prayer, and it's all these kind of imaginative, contemplative exercises, and over the course of the year, my understanding of what it meant to pray really changed, and it went from understanding that prayer was a transactional thing, where I ask and God gives, and I might say my thank yous, my sorries, and all that stuff, but that kind of limited understanding of prayer moved much more kind of clearly into the idea that prayer is a space where we meet with God, and God might have things that He wants to say. He might use the exercises are very creative, very imaginative, and so God might bring things to mind in a whole load of different ways, and that in that space of meeting with God, that's where we hear about who He is, and what He's like. And over the course of a year, I came to recognise that He's always much kinder and He's much more generous than I thought He would be, and that the things that I want to make really complicated are actually really simple with God. And that as I heard that, and I believe that as we all hear that, we then hear about who He's making us to be and who we are in response, defined by Him. And so my experience of prayer is still a bit faltering, a bit stumbling, but trying to hold on to times and opportunity where I'm still and I slow down with God. I use the Lectio 365 app. Have you used it? Yeah. I find that really helpful, because that's a way for me that I can pray where it's not that someone's done the hard work for me, but they've done quite a lot of work. And it enables me to slow down, become aware of the presence of God in me, the people around me, understand who God is, and it's those moments that I believe shape us and form us.
Sure. Funnily enough, we've actually used that Lectio 365 at the beginning of some of our PCC meetings to set the sort of scene, as it were, before we go into the busy business of a PCC meeting, which I'm sure you know all about.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. Yeah, it is. It's worthwhile.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's we're continually being formed and shaped, aren't we? We're shaped by the places that we've gone and the conversations that we've had, and we can create opportunities for God to really deliberately, in a way that we're aware of, to shape us and to form us. And and what is it? It's 10 minutes a day. It's not loads, is it? But the thing that you do regularly is really, really valuable.
And you get that's right. I was just going to say, you get the value out of it, isn't it? That's sort of doing it on a regular basis, but as well, really helpful. So, is there anything that you would feel comfortable to share with us where you felt that you've had prayer answered?
So I was thinking about that before I came, and some people have like a blockbuster story, don't they? Of like, I prayed and this happened, and I don't have that. And I was reflecting on that, thinking, but I do still believe in the power of prayer. Like, I believe that we go to Jesus and we ask him for bread, and he doesn't send us away with stones. And I was trying to work out why I still believed in that. And I think it's because even though I don't have a load of I asked this and Jesus did that or whatever, I can still see that Jesus is at work in my life, and I can still see that he's at work in the people around me, and that when I ask him to forgive me, I believe that he does. When I ask him to help me to work on a part of my character or my relationships, or to be particularly present in different situations, I believe that he is. And so for some people that might be a really unsatisfying answer, because we want to pray for this person to be healed and see X, Y, and Z to happen, and of course we do, but that's prayer for me is about so much more than just the input and the output. It's about the living, breathing relationship, and that's the thing that shapes and transforms us. So I would love to have 100 different stories of I asked for this and I got that or whatever, but I still really believe that prayer shapes us and changes us, and God invites us to partner with him in recreating our communities and the world around us. And so I'm convinced that it works.
And it does work if you have that relationship with God, that you can actually, as we mentioned before, you can talk to him at any time of the day, wherever you are. Well, James, that's been absolutely brilliant talking to you today. I've really enjoyed hearing your story and so on. So thank you so much for being willing to do that and sharing everything that you have for us.
Great, thanks, David. Thanks for having me on.
As always, thanks for listening to our podcast, and be sure to check in again soon for another episode.